Good afternoon. My name is Michelle and I am a Stampin' Up! Independent demonstrator. I am based out of Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, and today I'm going to show you how I made these cards in different colors for my customers who made a purchase from me during the month of April 2016. So why don't we get started? We're going to be making the pink one today. So what you're going to need is a piece of Blushing Bride cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4. You will also need a piece of rose red that is 4 by 5 1/4. You'll need a piece of Whisper White cardstock that is 3 1/4 by 5, and a small little piece of Blushing Bride that is 1/2 inch by 3 1/4 inches. So those are the pieces we're going to use to make our card today. On top of that, you're also going to need a couple stamp sets from our current catalog as well as from the Occasions catalog. So the two stamp sets we're going to be using today is Another Thank You and the Grateful Bunch stamp set. And to go along with that, there's also the Grateful Bunch Punch, which is what I have named it, although I'm not sure that's what you're going to find it in under the catalog. But this is what the set we're going to be using today. So why don't we get started? The first thing you're going to need is your piece of Whisper White cardstock. You're also going to need a Stampin' Pierce mat or some sort of mat that is a little bit spongy, that has some give. Because the photopolymer stamps don't have the layer of foam like the red rubber cling stamps and the wood stamps do, you have to give a little bit of sponge underneath it so that it will give you a nice crisp impression and a complete impression. So to get started with this, I'm going to pull out my rose red ink. Just flip it open like this, put it to the side, and I'm going to ink this up. Now, the thing is with our Stampin' Up! Pads, they are very, very spongy and full of ink, so you don't want to hit too hard as you can cause a huge mess. As you can see already, I've inked around the stamp quite a bit, so I'm going to be careful not to rock so that I get a nice crisp impression. So I'll just hold it there for a second and pull it off, and you can see it's a beautiful crisp impression. Now I'm going to bring in my piece of paper here that I stamp on just so I don't mess up my mat, and I'm going to turn it upside down because the next color I'm going to use is the Tip Top Taupe, which is one of the in colors for the year 2015-2017. So, and I'm going to grab the lace stamp that is from the Grateful Bunch set. Whoops, I'm going to ink that up. Okay, and I'm going to stamp it across the top, leaving about, I would say, a little bit less than 1/2 inch at the top. So we'll give a nice good impression there once. And because it's not quite long enough, as you can see, I'll need to continue the stamp along. But because they're clear, they're very easy to line up. If it's not perfect, not a big deal. The next stamp I'm going to bring in is the leaves from the Grateful Bunch. Okay, and again, I'm going to stamp that in Tip Top Taupe, and I'm just going to do one on the upper side of the flower and then one on the lower side of the flower, just to give the background a little bit of interest, as this can be a little bit of a plain card. Now, the idea for this card came from Pinterest, and I will make sure to link to the pin that I took the idea from. She is did hers a little more differently than mine, so mine's a variation on that particular pin. The next thing I'm going to bring in is the Basic Black Archival ink, which is new to Stampin' Up! As this year. The great thing about this Stampin' ink, especially the archival version, is how quickly it dries, as well as the crisp impression that it gives. I was a big lover of VersaFine Onyx Black ink because of its truly lovely rich black image. Problem is it takes a little bit to dry, and when I run my workshops, I need it to dry a little bit more quickly because I can't have the members just sitting there waiting. So I've started using the archival, and I'm quite happy with the quality. So I'm going to use the thanks from the Another Thank You stamp set. This stamp set will be retiring this year as of the end of May, when the new catalog starts to come out on the 1st of June. So if you like this stamp set and you want to get your hands on it, then I recommend you get over to the Stampin' Up! Website and order it as soon as possible. It is my understanding that Stampin' Up! Will have all of its stamps that are retiring available until the 22nd of May. But after that, there's no guarantee you'll be able to get it. So I'd say get it sooner rather than later and don't wait on it. So I'm just going to stamp. You can see what a beautiful black impression that is, even over the darkness of the rose red ink. Then we're going to put this panel aside and let it dry. Close up my ink so I don't get my fingers all in them. And I'm going to bring in Blushing Bride and a piece of Whisper White. So as you can see, this piece of Whisper White has been well used. I've been making these cards all morning in different colors, so I have punched out the pieces that I need from here. So I'm going to grab my Blushing Bride stamp and the Grateful Bunch trio of flowers that correspond with the punch. And I'm going to give that a good ink up. I'm going to make sure the two big ones face the edge of the paper. Let's give it a second. And then you can see this is a much lighter color, but still a lovely impression. Then I'm going to take my punch, which is best used upside down so you can line up your images properly. And I'm going to line it up like so. Use a little bit of muscle. Whoop, and pop them right out. So I'll put my paper aside because I'm going to use that for my next card. And now I've got all my pieces, so I no longer need my Stampin' Pad. I'll grab all my pieces so you can see I've got the flowers here. The next thing I'm going to need is that short piece of Blushing Bride, and I'm going to grab in my snail adhesive and just give it a good run across the top like that. And then I'm going to lay it across the top of my panel, just like that, to cover up the white space and sort of give it a nice finished edge. With these little guys, I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals, which are great to add just a little bit of dimension to the back of these flowers. You should be able to fit one on each, and then I'm going to center them around my sentiment, as that is the focal point of my card. Alrighty, so we'll put this little guy on, and he might show just a little bit, but I'm all right with that. Just like that. And then the next thing we're going to do is grab in our piece of rose red cardstock, and I'm going to flip this guy over and put some adhesive on the back because he needs some good adhesive. I make sure that I really load it on there. I'm terrified about giving a card to anybody and having it fall apart or the front fall off. So there we go. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to use, I'm going to bring in some red liner tape. Any type of tape that you have hanging around that is a strong adhesive tape will work to hold on this piece of ribbon. So you can see this is the ribbon that I'm using. I actually purchased this from Dollarama here in Mississauga. I like to use a variety of ribbons. So anything I like I use. That includes Stampin' Up! Ribbons. So I'm going to find the edge of this guy. There's not much left on him. And I'm going to measure a piece that's a little longer than the top of my panel because I want it to be able to wrap around the panel itself. So I'm going to turn this around so I get a better view on it. And I want this in the middle of my Blushing Bride panel. Okay, I'm going to wrap it around one side, wrap it around the other, and then hopefully pick it off the back. Thing is, with this red liner tape, it does have quite a bit of static. So now I'm going to line up. This is just going to give it a nice little finished dimension, something a little bit extra. I'll pull that up just like so and like so. And then I'm going to pull in my Blushing Bride cardstock, which I scored at 4.5. And I like the bump to be the inside so that the card will stand up nicely and the spine does not crack. So I make sure to score it. Again, I'm going to put some good snail on the back of this card. I'm sorry if you hear a little bit of thumping in the background. I'm in my basement studio and I think that's my dad coming down the stairs. So I'm lining it up here. and I'm putting it on the middle. Now, in order to finish off this card, I'm going to put a couple embellishments. So I'm going to use these pearls with adhesive backs and just pop them into the middle of my flowers. And then the only thing that's left for me to do at this point is to put in my inside panels. Now I just cut a piece of nice sturdy white cardstock. It doesn't have to be Whisper White, which I usually reserve for stamping, but I buy this white cardstock from Staples, and then I cut it up and use it for my inside panels because I don't like to write on the colored cardstock. I like to have the finished look of a piece of white cardstock. And then finally, to finish it off, I put on my little embossed stamp that I have that says an original handmade card by Klieber. And of course it has the Stampin' Up! Copyright on the back because I did use Stampin' Up! Images. And if I want to give away this card or sell this card, that's one of the requirements in their angel policy. So basically, that is the finished card, a variation of a Pinterest card, and one that my customers will be receiving. It just depends which color they get. I'm hoping to do them in 4 different colors. So I'd like to thank you very much for watching my video and being part of my very first YouTube video. And hopefully you'll subscribe to my channel and to my blog. And I hope everybody enjoys this lovely sunny day in April. Take care.